Let's jump into our module of the week, Nick Laughlin.
Yes.
Tell us about it.
We have a new module of the week this week. It's DraggableViews. And so when I say new module of the week, it's one that we haven't talked about, but it's a very old module. It's one that I've used a bunch of times over the years. It's been around since 2008. So that must have been Drupal 6. And what it does is it allows you to create an interface for users to order views rows by dragging and dropping. So when you're editing content, if you have a bunch of paragraphs, for example, you can drag and drop and reorder them. This allows you to do the same thing with almost any view. If you have a blog and you have a client that wants to order them in a very particular way, DraggableViews is kind of the way to do it. It's compatible with all the currently supported versions, Drupal 7 through 9. It's pretty well, it's got a pretty big install base. I think it's got over 60,000 installs. I would say this is one of those modules you definitely want to read the README on, though, because you feel it's one of those ones where you think like, oh, I can figure it out. I'll just create the view, create the other view, and then tie them together. But it is fairly finicky. And if you don't set them up perfectly, it just won't work at all. And I will give one caveat. It does tend to have bugs. Like, for example, I have one client right now, I've spent an untold amount of time trying to figure this out. If they save content that's in a draggable view, the draggable view resets. And they have to go to the view, the administrative view, and save it again, and everything works. Like, they don't have to reorder it on the administrative view. It's in the right order there, but the actual output doesn't work, or I have to clear the cache.
This is weird. I seem to remember that issue, and I seem to remember maybe a patch for that issue, but
I've not been able to find.
I've also haven't used DraggableViews in a very, very long time, so that could be just misremembering.
Yeah, it's one of those modules. It's one of the only modules that does what it does, but it is one that I don't install everywhere. Because
it's funny, as
these weird cases.
As you were describing it, it kind of reminded me of like Layout Builder before there was Layout Builder, when you were like, oh, I have this whole page of things. I have to like move them around. What do I do? Oh, DraggableViews. Here you go.
It was DraggableViews or what was it? Panels?
Yeah, that's what we still have in D7. Yep.
Panels.
But I'm curious. So we've used NodeQ before, and that sounds very similar, like a simpler version of this, right? But is that, when would you use one versus the other?
Panels and NodeQ are like,
it's super ancient. I mean, NodeQ is one of those modules that has been on projects I've worked on, but I've never set up myself. But my understanding is NodeQ, you generally have to create what's in them yourself. So you would create a NodeQ and say, I want these 5 modules in it in this order, and then it output somewhere. Whereas the DraggableViews, you just have a view that says, give me all the blogs with this tag. And then you have a second view where you can see that. And then you can just say, okay, I want them in this order. And you just drag and drop.
Nice.
So I use it, for example, on a page, the client I was mentioning, they have a really unique page for thanking donors. It's a nonprofit organization, and they have a bunch of different, they call them cards, but they're promotional cards. Like, one is, some donor names. One is a link to an Instagram post by a donor. One is a logo of a corporate sponsor, and they're all different sizes, and they fit together with masonry. So they all kind of jigsaw them together. And they use DraggableViews to kind of bulk order them, because, if you've ever worked at a nonprofit, then different donors have to get promoted differently.
Yes.
And so the order is very, very important. So we use it for that. But yeah, it's one of those things, like I said, it does something that almost nothing else does, but you do need to test it and be prepared for a fair amount of maintenance.